Shalom to my brothers and sisters who are in the body of Yahuwshua HaMashiyach, and shalom, shalom to the Hebrew Israelites who are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Today, I bring you a word and then also a very important message. And the title of this word today is The Book of Job Relates to the Israelites' Affliction and Captivity. The Book of Job relates to the Israelites' affliction and captivity. And this video is in response to Sister Debra's Brown video. And the title of her video is Warning, Breaking News, Message to Only Israelites. You see, my brothers and sisters, the Most High gave a very important message, for He wants us to read the book of Job. Which brings us to this. Yahuwah spoken last year through his messenger, and his message that relates only to Hebrew Israelites pertains to the book of Job, or what he wants us to get out from the book. So in the description box, Yahuwah prophetic messages shall be listed so you can have access to them. The first message is only pertain to Hebrew Israelites, and the second message pertains to Israelites and Gentiles. I highly recommend that you listen to that message, and the first message you can print out. Please print that message out, for you will see that the book of Job aligns with his message as well on what that book is trying to teach you. Also, in the description box will be some information about Pentecost, and you will see how Pentecost also relates to the book of Job. And last, please remember Brother Alayasha and his family, for they are truly bearing their spiritual cross. Their testimony video links shall also be listed in the video description box. Please pray for them, and those who are able, please visit them, for the husband and wife are in jail. Okay? Now the date of this word is July the 30th. Now I have to make a correction. The heathen day is Sunday, and the phase of this day is night. And today the heathen would say it's morning time, but it's still in the night phase. But on Yahuwah's calendar, this is the 5th month and 6th day, which fall on July the 29th to July the 30th, from sundown to sundown. Now for the Most High request. Sister Debra, I want to thank you for being obedient to the Most High, because this book truly relates to the Hebrew Israelites. For as you see in this picture, it states that the book of Job, the refuge and hope for Israelites, the honor, glory, and righteousness of Yahuwah. For those who have read this book, what I recommend unto you, because this is what the Father had me to do, go back and read it with a blank mind and take your time and slowly digest the chapters. And seek Yahuwah for his understanding about the book. For what Job had went through, the nation of Israel is going through the same thing. And you will see why the book of Job is the refuge and hope for the Israelites. And most important, you will see why it is also the honor, the glory, and the righteousness of Yahuwah. So first, let us take a look at the definition of refuge. Refuge means a condition of being safe or sheltered from pursuit, danger, or trouble. Something providing shelter. An institution providing safe accommodation for women who have suffered violence from a spouse or a partner. So now that we have seen what refuge means, we as Hebrew Israelites can definitely relate to that. For we are truly under the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28. And we have always, and since 70 AD, we have been what? Persecuted, vexed, afflicted, and oppressed. So when we look at the book of Job, it definitely relates to the Israelites' affliction and captivity. For when you reread this book, and for those who have not read the book, when you read it, you can see yourself and the nation of Israel in this book, Hebrew Israelites. Also, this book also let me know it is a book of comfort. For when you read the testimony of Job, it shall definitely comfort your soul. Because, see, the book of Job is like a summary of the word. And to understand what I mean by that, when you have read the whole volume of the book, you can truly understand what Job is talking about. But there's a lot of great spiritual mystery in which only the Spirit can reveal it unto you. And when I'm talking about the whole volume of the book, I'm talking about from the Old Testament to the Apocrypha to the New Testament. This book is like a summary of all. Now let's open with some verses because these verses definitely pertain to Job. 2nd Ezra chapter 6, verse 18 to 19. And it said, Behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh and to them and to visit them that dwell upon the earth. So the days are here that what? Yahuwah is drawing nigh, and this is how we know. Let us read the 19th verse. And we begin to make inquisition of them what they be that have hurt unjustly with their unrighteousness, and when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled. Now, as you can see in that verse I highlighted for you, the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled. See, just as Job was afflicted, Zion is afflicted. And for those who don't understand what Zion is, Zion stands for the Israelites, but it represents the kingdom of Judah. And in the kingdom of Judah, you have the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Benjamin, the tribe of Levi, and the remnant of the northern kingdom. So in that kingdom, you still have a representation of all Hebrew Israelites, the 12 tribes. And when you read the new, excuse me, and when you read the new covenant, the Messiah will also confirm to you that he also came unto the lost sheep, the other lost sheep, which is mentioned in John chapter 10. And the precept for that is Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 22. For the two sticks shall become one. A mystery that the heathens do not understand. But when you get some time, read that. So Zion represent all Israelites, and our affliction shall be ending soon, my brothers and sisters, just as Job's affliction has ended. Also, when you read the book of Job, it shall give you a greater understanding of Psalms chapter 23. Now, I will read unto you verse 3 and 4, because verse 3 and 4 really stood out to me, my brothers and sisters. However, the whole chapter of Psalm 23 does relate to the book of Job. But we shall read these two verses. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Now, these verses is definitely preach and witness in the book of Job. Some of the key words I just want you to write down and meditate. So when you read the book of Job, you will see what I mean. Such as, restoreth my soul, leadeth me in the path of righteousness. But notice here he said, for his name's sake. Now that one you definitely want to highlight because you want to understand what does it mean for his name's sake. But we're going to talk more about that. And in verse 4, walking through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So when you read the book of Job, you're going to truly get a greater understanding of what does it mean to walk through the shadow of death and not to fear evil. And also what does it mean that his rod and his staff comfort us. Which lead us to this, which is the most important thing. In Job chapter 28, verse 28, it says, "And unto man he said, Behold, the fear of Yahuwah, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding." See, it's a great spiritual meaning behind this, my brothers and sisters, because I know what the Pharisees have taught you, but you got to hear what the Spirit is telling you. You need to ask yourself, what is the fear of Yahuwah? See, I know they've been telling you about some letters on the paper, but they're not giving you the spiritual meaning of that. What does it mean to fear Yahuwah, which is wisdom? And what does it mean to depart from evil, which is understanding? And when you read the book of Job, you will get a greater understanding of this verse. Which leads us to this. As I was meditating on the book, this came across my mind. And I'm not taking credit. I give all credit to Yahuwah. But he brought this forth in my mind. He said unto me, if we don't go through the bad, which is evil, how can we appreciate the good? See, when you read a whole volume of the book, you will learn that Yahuwah created what? Good and evil. See, when you go back to the beginning of the book, which is Genesis, you will learn that good and evil exists in all things, in all his creations. For each of them have a purpose. And both of them bring before Yahuwah his will. And you will understand more as I share with you on what the Father taught me about the book of Job. So if we don't go through the evil, how can we appreciate the good? Something to really think about. Or how can we remain in the goodness of Yahuwah? Okay, so this is what the Spirit shared with me. When I read the book of Job, these are the first thing that I heard that came across my mind. Restoration and regeneration. But then my father had me to meditate on this and to have me meditate because he said it goes deeper than that. Because see, we have to ask ourselves, what is before restoration and regeneration? See, something great has to take place in order for restoration and regeneration to come. So, in the whole book, these are the things that he brought to my attention: refinement, being tried, purification, to be humble, to trust, integrity, fear, and repentance. So, these things have to occur first before Job was restored and regenerated. Okay? They have to occur first. And when you study these things, you will learn that it relates to Pentecost, dealing with the wheat harvest. Just as the wheat is threshed and whittled, so are we. So was Job too. Because see, when you study the Most High holy feast days, you will learn that his feast days are to teach you of what is yet to come. They are to teach you of the past. And most importantly, it's to teach you what? Spiritual things. For when you reflect back on the feast of Passover, which is known as the Feast of Unleavened Bread, you will learn that we ate flat bread. But when we transitioned to Pentecost, we ate bread with leaven. So the bread was what? Not flat, it was risen. And there's a reason for that, because the Father was telling me, why would I have you go from flat bread to leavened bread? And the reason is it represents going from being empty to being filled with the fullness of Yah. Now that's the mystery that many do not understand. So I highly recommend that you go back and study Pentecost and study Passover. And if you need more understanding, there's videos and you can check the description box. But I want you to seek Yahuwah for his understanding because it's a great mystery about the fullness of Yah. But now let us continue. So when we go through these things and we become humble and trust and have integrity and fear and repentance, then the following can be defeated, which are pride, buildingness, and rebelliousness. hmm It's a reason why you have to be refined, tried, and purified. Because without those three things, you cannot defeat pride, bitterness, and rebelliousness. And these three things can lead you to be cut off from Yahuwah. Which brings us to this. In the book of Job, it will teach you about the greatest relationship. And what I mean by the greatest relationship, it'll teach you about the relationship that is between the potter and the clay. For we know the potter is Yahuwah and the clay are us. For we are Yahuwah tabernacles. And to understand what that means, you have to read Ezekiel chapter 11. So we have to ask ourselves this. In the book of Job, when it's talking about the potter and the clay, do we truly understand this relationship? I want you to meditate on that. Do we understand this relationship? Because if we understood the relationship that's between the potter and the clay, then you have to ask yourself this. Why do the clay dishonor the potter? Ask yourself this, Israelites. Why do the clay, which is us, dishonor the potter, which is Yahuwah, our Father? I want you to think about that. Let us keep going. So when we look at the book of Job, we learn in the beginning of the book that Job's character is esteemed before Yahuwah. For the book said that he was perfect, upright, fear of Yahuwah, and eschewed evil. Mhm. So you have to ask yourself this question. Why would Yahuwah turn Job over to Satan, who is our greatest enemy? Why would Yahuwah do that? Have you ever thought about that, Israelites? Why would Yahuwah turn Job over to Satan? Because see, Job was an upright man. He was perfect. He feared Yahuwah and he eschewed evil. And I also want you to pay this attention too. Notice how Yahuwah said unto Satan, you can do all these things unto him, but spare his life. So the answer to the question, why would Yahuwah turn Job over to Satan? It has to deal with the heart, which is also known as your soul. See, when you read the whole book, this is what you would come to learn about Job. Because see, Job represents us Israelites. This is what you'll learn. There are things in our heart that we do not know is there until we are in certain situations. See, when you look at Job's affliction, in the beginning he was doing good, my brothers and sisters. He was doing real good. But then as his affliction persisted on, Job's heart began to change. Mhm. So I'm going to read this to you again. The things in our heart that we do not know is there until we are placed in certain situations. Yahuwah is the only one that can see the heart and knows what you shall do in all things. See, and this even go for me. You know how we read the book, and when we read about And when we read about our ancestors, we all be quick to say, well, I would have not done that. I know what I had done for Yahuwah. See, it's easy being on the outside looking in and say what you will and what you won't do. But when you go through the test, that is the proof of what's truly in your heart. Uh-huh. See, Yahuwah knows all. He know what you're going to do before you even do it. He know what you're going to think before you even think it. He knows all. But let us continue. So after the second trial, Job began to what? Question Yahuwah. But he didn't question him in wisdom. He questioned him in his flesh. Uh-huh. One of the greatest mistakes that the servants of Yahuwah can do. You hear me, Israelites? That's one of the greatest mistakes that we can do unto Yahuwah. Begin to question him in our flesh and not in wisdom. Now, I want to bring out this important passage because this passage is like, what's the best word I can use? It's like you want to write this down because then you begin to see how the enemy plant the seed, and how if you don't use your spiritual eyes and your discernment, if you don't know how to use the spiritual discernment that the Most High given to you, you can fall into Satan's snares. hmm Now, one of Job's friends, had a vision, and in this vision, a spirit came unto him and spoke these following words. And this spirit said, "Shall mortal man be more just than Yahuwah? Shall man be more pure than his maker?" Now, we already know the answer to this question, that is no. But as a reason why this spirit asked this, because when he looked at Job's character and how he did not what? Curse Yahuwah, he couldn't believe it. So the spirit was asking, can this man be more just than Yahuwah? Can this man be more pure than his maker? Let us keep going. So the spirit going to say this: "Behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. How much less on them that dwell in houses of clay, whose foundations in the dust, which are crushed before the moth." Now, we are the houses of clay because we come from the earth, which is dust, right? So the spirit said that he put no trust in his servants, and the angel he charged with folly. And if he does that to them, how much less than to us? Let me go on and read verse 20. "They are destroyed from morning to even, they perish forever without any regard in it. Doeth not their excellency which is in them go away? They die even without wisdom." So this same spirit saith that the excellency that's in them go away, and when they die without wisdom. Now, to understand what wisdom that this spirit is talking about, you got to read Genesis chapter 6, verse 3, and Genesis chapter 2, and 2nd Ezra chapter 16, verse 61. Because do you see how the enemy planted a seed in one of Job's friends? Because it's very important to pay attention to what that spirit asks, because then you will see how it played out in the book of Job. So after the second affliction, Job began to what? Curse his day of birth and started to request death. Now, we shall go back to the potter and the clay relationship, because you need to ask yourself this. Here we have Job, who is clay, cursing his day of birth and requesting death. Now, you need to ask yourself this: is this against the plan of the potter? Think about it now. In Job's time of troubles, he wanted death, and he cursed the day that he was born. Because he was like, if I have to go through this evil, why should I have even been born? So, in what Job was saying with his mouth, which came from the flesh, Is this against the plan of the potter? Yes. Let us keep going. Because when you read the book of Job, you will learn that he did not want to face his afflictions anymore. He couldn't take it. He had enough. So he wanted the easy way out. He didn't want to face the judgments of Yah. He wanted death. Again, is this the plan of the potter? So when we take a look at Job chapter 4, verse 17, back to that spirit question about a mortal man being more just than Yahuwah, and shall a man be more pure than his maker? We know the answer is no, but it's a deeper thing that the Most High wants you to pay attention here. Okay? So now let us look at justification and pureness. See, we know man is not more just than Yah, and we know man is not pure than his maker. But for this spirit to ask this question, because when he saw that Job did not curse Yahuwah, let me get the right thing here. Yeah. When this spirit saw that Job did not curse Yahuwah, despite all the afflictions that Satan had put upon him, this spirit was like real inquisitive about it. You're like, what? Huh? Okay. To give us more understanding about justification pureness, you got to go back to the beginning. See, when Yahuwah made male and female, which were made in their image, yeah, go back in the word, male and female was made in their image. You will learn what image mean. What does the image of Yah mean? For when you do a further study, you will learn that because male and female was made in their image, we imitate what the Father does. Hmm. We imitate what the Father does. This is why when the Spirit saw that Job did not curse Yah, he didn't understand what was in Job. For Job was made of what? Body, soul, and spirit. And because he was made of those three things, he imitate what the Father does. See, he showed what? A greater work that was in him. Let's keep going. I'm just trying to give you some more understanding. So instead, let's see here. Oh, I'm jumping the gun here. Let me go back. So when you have that spiritual connection with Yah, guess what? Spirit and mankind can see Yah in you. This is why the spirit that came in the vision to one of Job's friends questioned, how can this man be righteous? How can this man be pure? He questioned that because he didn't understand it. Okay? But let us keep going. Okay? So in the book of Job, when as Job continued to endure his afflictions, you will learn that he began to justify himself and not Yahuwah, which led Job to disregard Yahuwah's judgment and to condemn Yahuwah. Yes, read the book. You'll see it. And I know you're scratching your head because you're asking yourself this next question. So how did Job justify himself in his time of affliction? How did he do it? Okay. Now, I forgot to tell this to you. To understand more about justification, the Messiah said a great mystery too about justification. Read Matthew chapter 11, verse 19, and Luke chapter 7, verse 35. But let me get back on track here. So the book of Job, well, Job testimony, which we actually tell you that he began to justify himself in his time of affliction. And how he did this, my brothers and sisters, by boasting about his righteousness, his own works. So where is Yahuwah glory in that? And I know you heard this before, Israelites, especially in the new covenant. The new covenant tell you all the time, you cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven with your own righteousness. which is your own works. You have to enter with the righteousness of Yah, a mission that many do not understand, which shall be explained further in this video. But let us keep going. Because the next question you're going to ask yourself is, how is Yahuwah justified? How can man justify Yahuwah? That's the next question you want to ask yourself. So when we go back and we look at the image that male and female is made, because they are made in their image, as we said before, we learned that the image imitates what the Father does. And because the image imitates what the Father does, because he has what? Body, soul, and spirit. All right. It shall draw men unto Yahuwah like a bug is drawn to light. Do you see the parable I'm giving to you? Because male and female is made in their image, therefore what? They're going to imitate. They're going to what? Walk like them, talk like them, have their ways and their understanding like them. They're going to be what? Connected to them. And because they are made in their image, they shall draw men unto Yahuwah like a bug is drawn to light. You see, my brother and sister, it is about the righteousness of Yahuwah, not the righteousness of man. See, Israelites, I know y'all trying to work it out. I know you're trying to keep the law in your flesh, and you're doing it without the spirit. And you're going to try to justify yourself with that. But it's not going to work for you, Israelites. You got to have the spirit. You got to have the spirit. So let us continue. So to understand more about the righteousness of Yahuwah, you need to read Romans chapter 10 and Philippians chapter 3, verse 8 to 21. Because the source is Yahuwah. See, this is where the righteousness comes from. It comes from our Father, Yahuwah. For he teaches his children his ways, his understanding, and his wisdom. And notice that I'm putting emphasis on his. Because the world ways and their knowledge and their understanding, their wisdom is nothing like unto our Father Yahuwah. Therefore, the clay shows the character of Yahuwah, for he dwell in them who are the tabernacles of Yahuwah. Do you hear what I'm saying? The clay shows the character of Yahuwah, because what we are made in their image, and we imitate what they do. We have their ways, their understanding, their wisdom, their knowledge. Okay? And we are what? Their tabernacles for the Father, for they dwell in us. We can only keep the law in spirit and in truth. For you must have the fullness of Yah. And I want to stress to you, because you really need to seek Yahuwah, my brothers and sisters, and ask yourself, what is the fullness of Yah? For flesh cannot fulfill this. And the Messiah set the example, for he was the first of his kind. He is the first of his kind that did this and possessed the fullness of Yah, which was made by Yahuwah. So you need to go back to the new covenant and read and see what is this fullness of Yah, because he's the only one. Also read Isaiah chapter 11 too, and 2 Corinthians chapter 15. But let us keep going. So when you read further in the book of Job, you will see that Job had 3 friends. And these 3 friends condemned and mocked Job, and they spoke very foolishly because they didn't have no wisdom in them, my brothers and sisters. And because they could not answer his questions, they could not comfort him, nor did they show him any mercy. Now, don't this sound familiar, Hebrew Israelites? Does not the world condemn and mock us? Have we not become a proverb? Have we not become a byword? Just like Job. You see, Job was a byword of the people, hated by all, no longer a man, but a worm, a reproach of men, and despised of the people, as written in Psalms chapter 22, verse 6. Which brings us to this, Israelites. Don't our enemies look at us as beasts? They don't even think of us as human beings. we have a lot in common with Job. Let us continue. So Job was brought so low that he became a brother to dragons and a companion to ostriches. Go back and read it, and you understand what he means. Because he was so low, and because he was a reproach of men and despised by all, he became a brother to dragons. And dragons represent what? Evil. Because I got to go to that chapter. Let me go to it, because to understand what that really means, Job says something very important there. And just bear with me. I'm going to find it. It's in chapter 30, and I'm going to read verse 26. For Job said, when I looked for good, then evil came unto me. And when I waited for light, there came darkness. This is why he said he is a brother to this is why he said he is a brother to dragons and a companion to ostriches. And when you learn about ostrich, I'm sorry, my tongue cannot pronounce this word, but when you learn about ostriches, you will learn they are a creature with no wisdom, and you will understand what Job means. So just as Job was forsaken by all, kinfolks and friends, and even by his servants, his men servants and his maid servants, he was forsaken by all, my brothers and sisters. So are the Israelites. For those who awakened and accepted their heritage, we're going through, yeah, we're truly going through in this world of darkness. But let us continue. But as you read further in the book of Job, a young man come along and rebuke all of them. But this young man represents something very important here, my brothers and sisters. He represents something spiritual here that many do not understand in the new covenant. Okay? For this young man, what he did shows it is not about status/title, gender, self-righteousness, or about your will, but it's about the spirit. This is why the brothers and some sisters, but mostly the brothers, have a hard time understanding why the daughters are prophesying, why Yahuwah is using them as his messengers too. Y'all have a hard time understanding this because you're not in spirit. But when you understand the mystery of the hidden man of the heart, of the one who dwell in them, the one who speak through them, then you understand why the daughters can prophesy just like the sons, and why Yahuwah can use them as his messengers. You see, Israelites, Yahuwah trying to teach you something, but you're not getting it because you're still in the flesh, and you won't grasp a hold of his spirit in the new covenant. You won't do that. Because in the Old Testament, in the book of Isaiah chapter 3, you will learn that this is pertaining to the men, the brethren. Okay? When you was the head during that time, there was a lot of unrighteousness among you, my brothers. And because that righteousness was among you, Yahuwah got fed up with it. And for your punishment, he said, women shall rule over you, and your children shall be your oppressors. Then those who have a copy of the 1611, there's some precepts to those verses to give you examples in the Old Testament how that came to pass. And it's still going on today based on the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28. So Yahuwah is doing this unto you. Stop blaming the women and look at who's doing this unto you. Okay? But let us continue. So when you get a chance, read Acts chapter 2 and Joel chapter 2, because you will learn now we are in submission unto the spirit. So whatever the spirit command that person to do, whether they're male and female, they have to obey the spirit. Yah. They cannot obey flesh, but Yah. So now this brings us to this. We were talking about earlier about fear. In the book of Job, you will see how they spoke foolishly unto the Most High, Job and his friends. And because they spoke foolishly, they didn't have fear of Yahuwah. So now we're going to read this section that pertains to fear and the rod, because these two going hand in hand, my brothers and sisters, okay? Because see, the same thing that happened to Job is the same thing that's happened to the Israelites. See, it's written in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 29, for it says that, oh, that there was such an heart in them, that they would fear me and keep my commandments always, that it might be well with them and with their children forever. He said, here Yahuwah, he said, if there be such a heart in them, that they would fear me. See, when, just as the book of Job give this testimony here, Israelites, you will learn that Yahuwah is all knowing and sees all. And if you know this, my brothers and sisters, if you truly know this, if you know that Yahuwah knows all and sees all, why did we act like he can't see and hear what we do? See, this is how we know we don't have no fear, because if we truly know this and take this to heart, a lot of the transgressions we commit against him, we would not do. We will even think about it. We wouldn't let it even come across our mind, because we know that he sees us and he knows all. And because we know that, we begin what? To fear. Now I'm going to give you my testimony about fear. When the Most High spoke unto me, I'm telling you, you know he's speaking to you. A fear came over me. And this kind of fear that I'm talking about, I felt my heart move. I felt a shaking within. It's just like when you have a thunderstorm, you hear the thundering, and what you do, you get quiet and get still. Because you know not to play, because you fear the Most High. So in the book of Job, it's going to give you a great understanding about what is the fear of Yahuwah. For when you fear him, these are some of the signs. Your bones will shake. These sensation of fear will come upon you. Your heart be trembling. And sometimes you can feel your heart move out of place. For example, there's a doctrine that's going on out here about the birth of the Messiah. But when the Spirit showed to me about the miracle of the Messiah birth and why he's the second Adam and why no man and no angel can take the honor and glory and credit of that, because that's under the powers and miracles of the Most High. It didn't come by no sperm of man. It came by the power and miracles of the Most High. When I realized what the word was truly saying, that he is the Son of Yahuwah, I felt that shaking come upon me. And when I realized what the word was telling me, I repent. I said, Father, forgive me, because I believed the doctrines of the Pharisees at first. I said, Father, forgive me, because you know I'm about truth. I'm not about lies. This is how you know when you fear the Most High. You'll know it, because when you truly know that the Father is really looking at you, you would think twice before committing a sin or even thinking about it. You would think twice. Which leads us to this, the rod. When you think of Psalms 23, he said, what thy rod shall comfort us. You might say, how can a rod comfort us when the rod represent what? Chastisement. See, when Yahuwah is chastising you, just like he chastised Job, you will learn that he only does that to those whom he loves. And that rod would keep us in line, keep us on that path of righteousness. And that rod make us what? Fear Yahuwah. Because guess what? When he chastise you, or when he whoop your behind, you begin to fear him because you don't want to go through that. And the reason why he does that with his rod is about saving your soul from the eternal death. And Job talk about that all the time, about being in the pit. Yahuwah is trying to save your soul. This is why he's trying to put that rod upon you. This is why he put that rod upon Job. This is why he allows Satan to afflict him. You see, Job didn't understand Yahuwah plan for him. See, Job thought he had it all down. He thought he got it. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I do all righteous work, and I'm that what makes me right with Yahuwah. But what Job could not understand was he couldn't see the plan why Yahuwah allowed Satan to afflict him. Because see, not only was Job being tested, because Yahuwah wanted to see would we worship him in times of our trouble. Will we still worship him? Because you know what I mean. We only have some brothers and sisters who only worship Yahuwah when good things happen. But when bad things happen, they forget all about Yahuwah. They don't know Yahuwah. They don't believe in Yahuwah. They have unfaithfulness. They become bitter. But see, the Most High was trying to bring Job on a higher level. See, he accomplished one thing, but he still needed some what? He still needed to be refined, tried, and purified to get on a higher level. The same thing with the Israelites. See, a lot of us think that we got this. Oh, we got Torah. We got everything down. We know this. Okay. We think we know everything. But what the word made me realize, you know nothing. And the level that you at, you're still low. The Father's trying to bring you to higher things, to spiritual things. This is why he bring you through chastisement, because the potter sees something in the clay that needs to be removed. So the potter will use his rod, which represent chastisement, to remove the impurities so you can get on the next higher level. So that's the plan that Job didn't see, okay? Because he became blinded in his own self-righteousness. So let's get back on track here. So with the rod of Yahuwah, it represents chastisement, which shall bring forth you to learn how to fear Yahuwah, so you won't play with him. And so you would think twice before committing any transgressions against him. And because of that chastisement of Yahuwah, it is to what? Save your soul from the eternal death, the pit. And this is how we know Yahuwah loves us, because he won't do it to the ones that he don't love. He'll let you go right and head into the eternal death. But those that he truly loves, he's going to what? Put you back on that path of righteousness. Which brings us to this. A lot of you don't even realize that Yahuwah has a personality. I know for a fact Yahuwah laugh at us. Because when I meditate on the things that I have done and the things that I see the nation of Israel doing, and with mankind what they're doing too, I laugh myself, because the part is saying, look at them. I made a better way for them and they still trying to reinvent the wheel. Here is the clay trying to tell me what to do and how to do it. Here is the clay trying to box me in and restrict my powers. They don't know who I am. They don't fear me. That's what the pot is saying to you. And he just laughing at you because you're not getting it. You making things too hard for yourself. Which brings us to Deuteronomy chapter 28. And I think that is verse. Let me look it up for you. I left off the verse. Forgive me. It's Deuteronomy chapter 28. And it's in verse Hold on, I'm still looking for it. Oh, let's see here. I tell you what, for the sake of time, look for the video description box for that verse. But I do know it's in Deuteronomy chapter 28, and it reads this. And it shall come to pass that as Yahuwah rejoices over you to do you good and to multiply you, so Yahuwah will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught, and to bring you to naught, and ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. Now I know some of you scratch your ass. Excuse me, my tongue got twisted. I know some of you are scratching your heads and asking yourself, why would why would why would why would Yahuwah rejoice over our destruction, over our times of trouble? See, you can understand why he would rejoice over our time of goodness, but why would he rejoice over our time of destructions? See, a lot of us do not understand our Father. I told you he got a personality. See, Yahuwah is saying, here I did made a better way for them. But yet they reject me, they spit in my face, they despise my ways, my understanding, my laws, my commandments. But yet they expect me to do good unto them. Have they lost their minds? Have the clay lost their minds? See, the potter is saying, I invented you. I created you. You didn't make me. How dare you? When you get some time, read the work of Josephus, and you can really see how the hand of the Most High played upon certain clays when they thought they was in control. But you will learn that it is Yahuwah that can lead you to your path of destruction. See, he can set things up for when you think that you have thought everything out, and when you think that your wicked ways shall be fruitful, Yahuwah can set you up so nice and where you can fall. Hmm. For example, read the book of Esther and see what the enemies of the Israelites see their faith. See, they thought they had a way to destroy the children of Israel. They thought they had a way. But little did they know, Yahuwah was setting them up for their fall. See, Yahuwah have a way of stirring up a king's spirit, which caused him to read the book. And he realized what that Mordecai did a great favor unto him and saved his life. And because of what Yahuwah did, that took away the king's sleep, saved the Israelites and brought the destructions of the wicked ones. So yes, our Father has a personality, and he will laugh at you because he's like, you brought it upon yourself. I warned you and you won't listen. So you get what you get. Now this brings us to this, the integrity of Yahuwah. There was another thing that spirit question he could understand. How could Job still possess the integrity of Yahuwah before he spoke foolishly? This is why Job did not curse Yahuwah. Now you need to ask yourself, what is the integrity of Yahuwah? For when we read Isaiah chapter 58, verse 8 through 9, that see, here's the thing that man did not understand. Yahuwah have his own ways and his own understanding. It is nothing like mankind. See, the integrity of Yahuwah is having Yahuwah character, his morals, his ethics, his doctrines, which is not of this world, but of Yahuwah. This is why Israelites, this is why the heathens want our sacred scrolls translated. They were impressed with our Father's ways, wisdom, and with his government. And the work of Josephus is one of the books that would prove that. This is why the Ptolemies had our sacred scrolls translated, because they were curious. Because when they look at the nation of Israel, they were like, why did they do what they do? But what they do works so well. It is the best. It impressed the heathens. So this is why our sacred scrolls are translated into many other languages. Because no other nation rocked the way Israel rocked. And that was because of Yahuwah. For we had his ways, his wisdom, his government, and his understanding. So the integrity of Yahuwah, remember this is like, is having Yahuwah character, thinking like him, walking like him, talking like him, knowing how to love your neighbor, knowing how to love him, because you are what? Spiritually connected. Also in the book of Job, which is one of the most important pieces that I told you earlier, because the book of Job will give us comfort, because the Israelites are in what? Captivity too. Just as Job was in captivity in darkness, we are in captivity too. And we had the same enemy, Satan. Okay? So the captivity in the book of Job is represented by darkness. See, Job captivity was turned until Yahuwah will was done. And notice who he had Job to pray for. Notice that. Pay close attention to that. Let me get my words right. Sorry about that. So, in order for Job's captivity to be turned away, he had to do what? Yahuwah's will. See, there's some commandments or instructions that he command Job to do. So you need to ask yourself this, Israelites. What is Yahuwah's will for the Israelites to turn away their captivity? Now I know the scriptures that's in the word, but you need to go back to Yahuwah prophetic message, because he tells you what you must do to turn away the captivity that we are in today. And the same thing that happened to Job should happen to us. It's going to happen. And notice whom Job had to pray for. You need to ask yourself why. See, Job represents Israel. Just like Israel was once on top, just like Job was once on top, then Job fell, so did Israel fell. But in the end, Job and soon the nation of Israel shall be restored to be back on top. So this is what you need to ask yourself, Israelites, in this time of captivity. Are you praising Yahuwah in the bad and in the good? Think about it. Are you praising Yahuwah in the bad and in the good? Or are you complaining about it? Because it's a reason why we are going through this affliction. It's a great spiritual mystery behind that. But let us keep going. So when we look at restoration and regeneration, just as Job was blessed greater in the latter time than the beginning, so shall Israel be blessed greater in the latter days to come. And just like I said before, when you go back and look at it, Job was exalted for a little while, then he was brought low, but in his latter day he was made greater than before. And when you look at Job's testimony, he represents what should happen to the Israelites. In the beginning, what? We was what? Exalted before all nations. Then we were brought low. But now, in these latter days to come, we should be made great again. We shall be exalted above nations. And this is another thing I need to bring to your attention, Israelites. Many of us are trying to hold on to things of this world, which does not make any sense because the word tells us that a new heaven and new earth shall come. See, I'm not looking at Job's life, his first life, the life that when he was exalted at first. Everything was good. And see, Job was really operating more in the carnal things, working out his righteousness in the flesh. But then Yahuwah had to bring him low to get him on a higher spiritual level, to take him to the place that he needs him to be because he saw something within his heart that wasn't right. And when Job realized the error of his ways, when Yahuwah made Job realize the error of his ways, he repented immediately on the spot. And once he did that and followed the instructions of Yahuwah, he was exalted greater than before. And the same should happen to you, Israelites. Yes, we are in a lower state right now. But in this lower state, Yahuwah is trying to get you on a higher spiritual level. See, he made promises unto our forefathers. He made a promise unto you. And he's trying to get you on a higher spiritual level. For he has greater things for you. But he cannot use you if you are, what's the word I'm looking for? He cannot use you if you are defiled. He cannot use you if you are vile. He cannot use you if you're unclean. He cannot use you if you're not pure in the heart. See, he's trying to do a great work within you because what he has for you is the greatest treasure. Many of nations want this, but he gave it unto you. But only those who make it in the wilderness, only those who go through the purge and make it, shall receive the greater blessing that he has for the Israelites. Remember that. Read Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 33 through 44. But let me get back on track here. So, just as Job was exalted in the beginning, just as Job was exalted in the beginning and brought low, and then he was exalted greater in the later, the same should happen to the Israelites. So now we are in the low state right now, Israel. And soon we should be brought to the greater state, greater than before. But we got to let go of these worldly things. We got to enter into the new covenant in order to understand spiritual things. Because a new heaven, a new earth is coming. So don't make your home here. Let go. But let us keep going. Now we're going to take a look at Yahuwah honor, glory, fear, and righteousness. And this is something that's going to exalt Yahuwah and to give him his respect and to give him his fear. Okay? Because see, even though we're in our lowest state, Israel, this still is working out to the good of Yahuwah. This still is drawing mankind unto him, and it still shall glorify him. For the nation of Israel still exists despite of being in the hands of our enemy. You need to really think about that, Israel, because there's been plenty of time our enemy could have killed all of us, but it did not happen. Think about it. We've been through killings, rape, slavery, prisons, poisonings, many great evils, mutilations, etc. But we still is here. And you have to ask yourself, why? Because of Yahuwah. And even Even in our times of troubles and affliction, there's a righteous remnant among us that still sing and praise and worship him despite of these evil things. And when the heathen see us doing that, you know they scratching their head, they wondering how are they still worshiping the Father and they're going through these evil things. See, in our time of troubles, Yahuwah shall be uplifted, honored, glorified by all mankind, because he's using the Israelites as an example to let the world know he is the only true and living God. Do you see what I see, Israelites? Do you see how he using our low estate to uplift him? Because the heathens are scratching their head. That's why some of them are converting and joining unto us. Because they see the peace in our heart. They see how Yahuwah still love us and still look over us and protect us. They see Yahuwah powers and blessings in Israel, who are the true Israelites, the Hebrew Israelites, the Negroes. Because when the final judgment go down upon this earth, my brothers and sisters, once he released his judgment upon the earth for their righteousness, for their unrighteousness towards the Hebrew Israelites, and for other transgressions, then all of mankind, including Israelites, shall fear him. And once they fear him, then he shall get his honor and glory. Then the Hebrew Israelites shall be restored, as written in Ezekiel chapter 36, as the head. But this time, Yahuwah righteousness shall be found in them, which shall glorify Yahuwah. This is why it's written in the word that many nations shall seek out a Jew. They should seek to come to the mountain, Mount Zion, because they want to be a partaker in the righteousness of Yahuwah. Which brings us to this in the book of Job. When Job was justifying himself through his own word, Yahuwah became very angry. So you have to understand, Yahuwah is a jealous God. This is why he said, my name is jealous, as written in Exodus chapter 34, verse 14. So when we don't give him the honor, the glory, and the praise in our time of troubles, and we take credit and try to justify ourselves in these times of troubles, then Yahuwah become angry at us. Because where is his glory? Where is his honor in this? Because when you learn how Yahuwah operate and why we go through these troubles, you will learn that he's trying to bring you on a higher spiritual level. And with knowing that, you should be praising him and thanking him. Also, when he's chastising us, he's trying to what? Save your soul from the pit, from the eternal death. In that, you should be praising him in these times of troubles. So we must respect the potter, for we are nothing but clay. So we must not talk back to him. We must not tempt him, for he is our creator, and we are just clays. Do you understand what I'm saying, Israelites here? Do you truly understand what the book of Job is telling you? Again, when you get some time, read the whole book. But this time, ask the Father to give you his understanding of Job's testimony. Because there's some great spiritual things there. Great spiritual things. For in Job chapter 32, verse 8, it says that, but there is a spirit in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty giving them understanding. So you need to ask, who is this spirit? Then we know the spirit comes from Yah, but who is this spirit? And how does this spirit give you understanding? a mystery that many do not understand. Also, Job chapter 38, verse 36 says, who have put wisdom in the inward parts, or who have given understanding to the heart? So I need to correct myself. You need to ask yourself, what gives you Yahuwah understanding? What gives you wisdom? And where is the spirit located? This is why I put belly. For those who understand what I mean, you understand you understand what I'm saying about belly. Because when he gave me the gift for tongues, I felt the spirit come from my belly, which is also known as my balls, and proceeded up through my tongue. And I had no control of my tongue. It was set. My tongue spoke as if it was on fire. Also in Psalms chapter 104, verse 29, thou hidest thy face, they are troubled. Thou takest away thy breath, they die and return to their dust. So you need to understand whose breath you have in you. See, we take for granted that we just living on our own because we breathe. But who calls you to breathe, and whose breath you have in you? Also in our time of trouble, as you look in the book of Job, as Job would say, it's like he hid his face from me. Have not Israelites, Yahuwah hid his face from us in our time of trouble because of our wickedness? Which leads us to this final thing here. When you look at the book of Job, the shifting of Satan. Just as Satan tried to shift Job, and even though Job did not pass his test fully, he still, let me correct myself, just as Satan tried to shift Job, he's going to try to do it to you, Israelites. He's going to try to get you to deny your power, to deny Yahuwah. And you really need to go back and really study Job so you would not do that. And so you would not transgress against him. All right, Sister Debra, this brings me to the end. This is what he has shown me so far. But I definitely agree with you. The book of Job does line up with the affliction of the Hebrew Israelites and their captivity. And there's so much things we can learn from Job. And that book is very comforting because we know what was, what is, and what is yet to come shall be brought forth. Our captivity shall end, my brothers and sisters, but only the righteous shall make it through. Make it right with Yahuwah. Give him honor and glory in all things, whether it's good or whether it's evil. Give him praise. Give him glory. And if you don't understand anything, seek out, read Luke chapter 11, verse 9 to 13. For he said, whatever you ask my son name, it shall be given unto you. For we are taught by his son spirit. As written in 1 John chapter 2, verse 27, and John chapter 14 to John chapter 15. To John chapter 16. We are taught by his son spirit. So seek Yahuwah for his understanding, his wisdom, his knowledge. And I end with this prayer. In the name of Yahuwshua HaMashiyach, I pray for the Hebrew Israelites that they would truly understand the book of Job. I pray that they would take time to read it and see how it relates to them. I pray that they do not allow Satan to shift them in these times of troubles. I pray that they hold on to Yahuwah more than ever before, but most importantly, to fear him and to give him his honor and glory, and to believe and have faith in the promises that he gave unto our forefathers and unto us. And if anything, Father, I have not prayed for in this prayer, I ask that you fulfill it according to your will. In the name of Yahuwshua HaMashiyach, so be it. So I'm sorry that this video was kind of long, but I truly hope that you see what the word showed unto me about Job's testimony. For when we go through Yahuwah's judgments, which is the afflictions or their troubles, do not frown upon it. Do not despise it. Embrace it. Rejoice and praise Yahuwah. For the Father has greater plans for you. And we don't want to work against his plan. We want to stay aligned in his plan. For he is the creator. He is the potter. And when the potter sees that something's not right in the clay, he's going to remove it. So allow him to do his work upon you. And you represent him. So you can bring mankind. So you can bring mankind unto him. Because we are to be the light in the world. And that light comes from his spirit, the Messiah spirit. So continue to preach the gospel that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Make sure that you baptize the people in the name of Yahuwshua HaMashiyach. And make sure you baptize the people in the name of Yahuwshua HaMashiyach. For the water is the second witness in the earth, and the Messiah set the example. And this concludes this word. The book of Job relates to the Israelites' affliction and captivity. I love you all. Shalom.